Welcome to Fireside Giants. My name is Alex with my co-host here, Anthony Rivardo. Today we want to take a look at former, estranged offensive tackle Isaiah Wilson, former Georgia guy, made his way through the Tennessee Titans and Miami Dolphins before landing with the Giants on their practice squad. Way overweight, trying to find his way back to the NFL and as hopefully a starter in the future. And the Giants, in a perfect world, they would have hit a home run on a player that, was a first-round talent, has some character issues. Joe Judge is clearly, leaning into him with some discipline. He has some good quotes about him yesterday. So we'll give you guys those quotes. And then we want to talk about Jason Garrett and one big factor, one big reason the Giants need to move on from him despite the injuries, despite the offensive line woes and whatnot. There is one big reason, and it really comes down to him that they need to move on. And there's a couple of different ones, but this is one really big one we want to talk about, Anthony. Before we do so, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing great. And any opportunity that I have to talk about Jason Garrett and how bad he is, I jump towards that because I love talking about how bad he is. Sure, it makes me depressed to think about how bad he is and how bad the Giants offense is with Jason Garrett. But if there's ever an opportunity for me to shed light on how bad his offense is, I will take that opportunity to discuss that so that more people realize this is a very serious problem and the Giants should move on from him as soon as possible. And then also Isaiah Wilson, I think that's an important conversation to be had because sure, he's probably never going to pan out to become a starter, but he might pan out to become a viable backup. And we've seen what offensive line injuries can do to a team. So if he is a viable backup that can go in there and play some snaps or play a couple games when need be, or if he can develop into that, that's exciting to me. And I think that's more than, what the Giants have paid to get Isaiah Wilson, right? They really just acquired him for nothing. So if he pans out even into being a decent backup, I'm happy with it. And apparently he is progressing pretty nicely according to Joe Judge. So that does excite me.
Yeah, so I'll give you guys some quotes right off the bat here so you can get an idea of just how he's progressing and what the Giants are, hoping to get from him in the future. So Joe Judge said, I think we have a long-term plans for this guy in terms of where we see this guy being able to help in the future. However, in terms of this year, he's made a lot of progress. And if the situation arises and the opportunity comes up, we're getting him ready to go ahead and help us. Now, the only way I see him actually making an appearance for the Giants is if there's an injury at offensive tackle. Highly doubt that he's going to make an appearance if Nate Solder, Matt Pert, and, of course, Andrew Thomas eventually when he returns. There's no way Isaiah Wilson is going to be able to make an appearance. However, they have been training him at guard as well. Now, that is an interesting idea for me. If they're training him at guard, I'm not opposed to putting him at left guard immediately. I mean, Matt Skura has actually been surprisingly decent, having never played the position before. So that's something to consider that maybe they don't want to, inject another player in there, but at the rate they're getting injured this year, if Matt Skura goes down or Will Hernandez goes down, they're going to really have no choice but to use Isaiah Wilson. Now, would I feel confident with him at guard? Absolutely not. I mean, I don't think he's played guard before, especially at the NFL level. He really is a primary tackle. He was a right tackle. He's got some nice size. And I think considering that he's still a little bit overweight, from what I've seen, I think maybe guard would be a better position for him because he just doesn't have the speed and the quickness to be kind of a tackle at this point right now with his body frame, but maybe giving him just a big body in the interior where he can, I think that's kind of how Eric Flowers ended up thriving. He just lacked the balance on the outside. I think now where he's in this guard spot, he doesn't need all that balance. He really can just use his grounding and strength to anchor down and not get overwhelmed on the edge, especially against those speed rushes, and use that balance correctly. So I think that, for the most part, maybe Isaiah Wilson could fit that bill. But Joe Judge went on to say, for a guy specifically, Isaiah, he's been making progress for us. He had some really good work yesterday in the one-on-ones against the defensive line and the defensive rush. So that's a good sign. And the fact that, they're saying defensive line and not outside linebackers, I don't know if there's a difference there, but it's possible that they've been working him in at guard over tackle, so that would be a position where they might be able to take advantage of. And he did also go on to say he gets extra work at some of the schematics and just you take it back to really like a base level with a lot of these guys because you get them at different points of the year. It's good to almost go back and reset and start by going over like it's OTAs or training camp with a lot of these younger guys and make sure they get every detail of the install on the way up. When guys come in, you get them the information, you get them the install. It's good as a group to all hear it again together for the first not for the first time, but like it's the first time. So I think they kind of hit the reset button with Isaiah Wilson. They were like, you know what? Let's just treat him like a rookie, treat him like a first-time kind of player, and then work him in that way. That's why he's kind of taking so long to get into shape and also learn the system, Anthony. But if they were to use him, how do you think is the best way for them to get the most out of him?
I think the best way is to just continue developing him at right tackle and hope that he pans into a decent backup. At this point, probably too late for him to pan into a starter, honestly. It's going to go a long way of time before he can develop into that. So I think just keep having him play a tackle because if you want tackle depth, Isaiah Wilson could be some pretty good tackle depth. One of the things that I really like about Isaiah Wilson is his frame. He's got super long arms. He's huge. He's built to play tackle, in my opinion, right? And I know we've said that before. Eric Flowers, sure, he was technically built to play tackle, played a lot better in the NFL at guard. Sometimes that happens, but it's not a frequent thing that happens. Usually, if you're built to play tackle, you play tackle. And that's kind of it. I don't really know if Isaiah Wilson at that weight can move into guard, right? Isaiah Wilson is very heavy. I know he's trying to trim some pounds, trying to get back down to a decent playing weight, but honestly, I think he is one of those players that might just be too big for guard, too big on the interior, just too wide, right? Because that's a very compact space that they have to move in. I understand you're saying maybe the short area quickness is not the best on the tackle spot, so maybe it'll be better on the interior. That can be true. That can also be false. It depends. I just think his arms are a little too long to deal with a guy right in his face. When you're playing tackle, there is a little bit of space between you and the edge rusher, right? There's like that little buffer because the tackles are playing a little further back. But when you're on the interior, it's as soon as the ball is snapped, there's a guy right on the ground in front of you and he stands up and hits you. So there's not that much time. It's you have to be even quicker to be in the interior sometimes, or if you want to be good on the interior, if that is, right? So with Isaiah Wilson, where should they continue to play him, in my opinion, is right tackle. He played that at Georgia with Andrew Thomas. Andrew Thomas was a starting left tackle. Opposite of him, Isaiah Wilson at right tackle. Now, I just looked back at my notes from that scouting season, right? When I scouted all of those offensive linemen because I knew that the Giants were going tackle, and I looked at my notes on Isaiah Wilson. I put in there was a night and day difference between Andrew Thomas and Isaiah Wilson. I was never a fan of Isaiah Wilson coming out of college. I did not think that he was a first round talent. He went in the first round, so everyone calls him a first round talent. But honestly, this guy was never a first round talent. In my opinion, he was always going to be a backup. Now, I understand the reason that he fell out of the NFL for a bit was not due to his talent. It was due to off the field issues, but still on the field, this guy was always a complete project. And the fact that this project needed to get worked on as soon as possible and has been delayed 2 years, he's already really far behind Isaiah Wilson is. So I don't know. It's going to be really tough for him to move forward and be a very good, talented player in the NFL. That's why I'm saying hopefully he pans out and becomes a decent backup right tackle for the Giants because that's something that we could definitely use.
Yeah, I mean, we could definitely use some more depth there, especially with Nate Solder. I mean, I think he has $4 million in guaranteed money next season, so he's probably going to stick around unless they just cut him and say, get the hell off our team. But I imagine if they're going to end up accumulating that dead money anyway, they might as well just keep him around and just sit him on the bench in like worst case scenario. Because right now it kind of is worst case scenario. He's just so inefficient. He had a decent run blocking game last week, but the pass blocking has been just a severe issue. But moving on to the next segment is talking about Jason Garrett, the number one reason he needs to be fired. And a lot of people bring up the, justification, or rather the secondary argument, like, why don't you put blame on Daniel Jones? And we're going to tell you why. We're going to give you some insight into why we think this is more of a Jason Garrett problem than a Daniel Jones problem, like some people might argue. And here's the statistic that should worry you. The Giants currently rank dead last in red zone efficiency, meaning they score 44% touchdowns in red zone opportunities, right? So they score touchdowns on 44% of red zone opportunities. That is dead last in the NFL behind Washington, behind Detroit, two offenses that have also sputtered this year. So I will say, is this for Daniel Jones? Should we be blaming Daniel Jones at all for this? I mean, of course, there is blame to go around for everybody. There's plenty of it to go around. I mean, Daniel Jones maybe making better reads or whatnot in the red zone could help. But the play calling in the red zone has been some of the worst I've ever seen. It's been so predictable that fans are able to see, the fade routes to Kyle Rudolph, the fade routes to Sterling Shepard. Every single game, I think we've thrown a fade route, and every single game it fails miserably. The only fade route that actually worked was in the Atlanta game. They threw a fade route to Kenny Golladay, ended up being a pass interference. We punched it in from the 1 yard line with Saquon Barkley. That was the only time it actually worked, but we actually haven't had a reception on any of those plays. We might have thrown 15 of them this year. We haven't had a single reception. So analytically, when you're looking at something and you say, okay, we've ran this play 10, 15 times, it hasn't worked a single time. Analytically, it should say we should stop using this play, right? Like altogether, we should stop using this play. Now, what I would like them to do is go look at our good friends, the Los Angeles Rams. Go look at our good friends, the Arizona Cardinals. Go look at our good friends, any team that has a competent red zone offense, and say, okay, what are they doing differently than us? Because I guarantee you they're not throwing fade routes on the 5-yard line to Sterling Shepard, who is our smallest receiver. That physically and logically makes no sense. So I will say this, if you watch the Baltimore versus Miami game last night and you watch Jacoby Brissett throwing fade routes into the end zone to Miami receivers and none of them had even a close opportunity at catching the ball, please continue to tell me why that is a good play call. If you're having a justification that this is more on Daniel Jones than Jason Garrett, you clearly aren't seeing the analytical side of this where the actual play calling is resulting in nothing. It's resulting in zero. We're wasting downs in the red zone, and you can't be wasting downs in the red zone because that's the difference between winning and losing and scoring a touchdown and settling for a field goal. Now, what other plays are really annoying? The halfback dives. 3 consecutive halfback dives behind an offensive line that is absolutely abysmal. We are the last ranked pass blocking unit, and we are in the bottom 10, I think, or bottom 6 in run blocking. So when you're looking at those type of statistics, you should probably get the idea that maybe running halfback dives is not our forte, probably not our strength because our run block is not really good. So why don't we use more interesting route concepts like rub routes, speed outs to our faster receivers? Like the one touchdown we had was it last week to Evan Ingram or the week before to Evan Ingram was a speed out. And that's really what they do to Cooper Kupp. That's what the Rams do for Cooper Kupp. A ton of speed outs from the slot, and he catches like 99% of them for touchdowns. They finally fit that into the scheme, and it worked like a charm. So like, why aren't we running more of those? Instead, we're running fade routes to the end zone and halfback dives. We should be running those speed outs, running those rub routes, using our big, and I actually really liked the play on the play action bootleg to the left side where Kyle Rudolph was supposed to be a blocker, and then he went and actually caught the ball. I think that was that last week? It was one of the last 2 weeks, but Kyle Rudolph got the touchdown pass. I think it was 2 weeks ago, and it was really nice to see that they did a rollout. The defense bit on Daniel Jones, thought he was going to run it, and then Kyle Rudolph ended up wide open. Those are the type of things you like to see instead of the fade routes. It's just not enough, right, Anthony? We're just not seeing those things enough. We're still seeing the bad play calls, and I think that's a major reason this team ranks 44th or last with 44% touchdown rate in the red zone, Anthony. So when you're looking at this group as a whole, what really troubles you the most? Because that's a huge reason for me that Jason Garrett just is getting the job done.
Yeah, what troubles me troubles me the most is the red zone play calling. Now, you guys are going to know exactly the play that I'm going to discuss. Not a specific play for the Giants, but a specific play in football. It's the goal line fade. You all know, anyone that's been listening to this podcast or watching this YouTube channel for a while knows I hate the goal line fade. Why on earth would you scheme up a play where your best odds are 50%? Why would you not try to scheme together something that gives you a greater chance than a 50-50 ball? You're throwing the ball up in the air, leaving everything up to chance. I don't care how talented the guy that you're throwing it up to is. Not that Kyle Rudolph is all that talented at this stage in his career. You're throwing it up and just hoping for the best. That's all that you're doing.
You have no control.
Not to mention, Daniel Jones has not been accurate on those goal line fades. Many of them have flown out of the end zone, failed to reach back pylon or front pylon, depending on where they're trying to set this up. A lot of them just keep flying out of the back of the end zone or out of the side of the end zone. He's not accurate at them, but they're still doing them. And they're not even doing them with favorable matchups. It's like Kyle Rudolph on Jalen Ramsey. Dude, good luck. Are you kidding me? I mean, just the goal line fade is the prime example of bad play calling down in the red zone, because when you throw a goal line fade, you leave everything up to chance and you say, I am too lazy to scheme together a play to get someone open and create a touchdown opportunity. You just want to leave it up to chance and hope that your guy is going to get lucky and have a more successful play than the other guy. That's it. What you could do is plenty of those plays that Alex was just mentioning, some rollouts. I'm not a big fan of rolling out in the red zone either, because you shrink the field in the already shrunken portion of the field. I just think that there are plenty of ways where you could spread it out, maybe do QB draw. They've done that before. The Giants did that one time. It worked. Daniel Jones got a touchdown. I would love to see that again. Spread it out, QB draw. Screen passes in the red zone do work too. Tight end screens where it's just a shovel pass and they fall forward with the offensive line right in front of them. You see Travis Kelce do that all the time. There are plenty of ways to scheme together open opportunities in the red zone rather than just throwing the ball up and leaving it to chance. Jason Garrett just does not seem like he has the ability to scheme together plays in the red zone. The red zone, the goal line, offense, All of that has been very poor. There's plenty of ways, if you look around the league, there are some very creative teams out there. Alex just mentioned the LA Rams, the way that they get players wide open with rub routes and pick plays. Smash concepts too. That's a pretty basic concept, but it works down in the red zone. It's a tight window, but if you can make the throw, it definitely works. There are plenty of ways to scheme together open opportunities in the passing game in the red zone. And of course, in the running game, a lot of that comes down to, are you predictable or not? And the Giants, unfortunately, are very predictable. The offense is very vanilla. And Jason Garrett, oftentimes his play calls are very much telegraphed. You know what's coming and you know when it's coming. You already know that the Giants are just running the ball up the middle, and that's pretty much it. And they're not going to gain much yardage that way for the most part. So Jason Garrett at large, he's been bad for over a year now, since the start of last season, but always his red zone offense has been bad, and it's really killed the Giants. They get turnovers, right? They get an interception or a fumble, and they get down into the red zone for it, and they just don't get any points because it's a turnover in the red zone or it's a field goal, it's 3 points. You have to start converting to touchdowns when you're in the red zone. That's how you win football games in the NFL, by scoring touchdowns, not kicking field goals, not turning the ball over in the red zone. When you're in the red zone, the Giants have to come away with points. Tom Coughlin used to stress that completely. That was a major thing for him. And that's what led to a lot of wins during the Tom Coughlin era. When they were in the red zone, they were efficient. They scored points. They practiced that stuff religiously. But the Giants just have not been converting when they're in the red zone, and it has absolutely tanked this offense for over a year.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at other teams, even the Raiders, who we beat last weekend, Derek Carr has 13, 14 touchdown passes. They have one of the worst offensive lines in the league. They still take deep shots downfield. The fact that Daniel Jones has only thrown 2 passes over the last 2 weeks that have gone past 20 plus yards and 3 passes beyond 15 plus yards is a really big and scary number to consider. They're just not dialing up the correct plays. They're not getting Daniel Jones even an opportunity. The pocket's collapsing too fast. He's not taking risks. It's just the entire offense is just dysfunctional at this point. And Jason Garrett plays a big part in that. Once they get into the red zone, that's the thing though. The Giants, at the very least, need to be a high red zone efficiency team. And even if they don't get there very often, because they get to that portion, they just can't get the ball. They can't punch it in. This team would be a totally different situation right now if they could punch the ball in at even a 60% rate, which would probably be middle of the pack. So, you look at the better teams in the NFL, the good teams, the ones that really win games and win them by a lot, have high red zone efficiency, and the Giants have dead last. So that should tell you a lot about the play calling and, of course, the offensive line, the injuries, and even some quarterback play. So, guys, let us know what you think about the red zone efficiency. Who is to blame? Is it Jason Garrett? Is it Daniel Jones? Is it a mixture of all of the different factors? It's probably that, a mixture of all the factors. But Jason Garrett's play calling definitely has to be considered here, because we've noticed a trend of very inefficient play calls that have really put the team in a bad spot at times. But make sure to subscribe below on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Enjoy the rest of your weekend and the bye week. Enjoy some Sunday football with no probability or expectations the Giants may lose, so we can continue to enjoy this victory week and this upcoming one, as we hope to see Andrew Thomas, Kadarius Toney, and Kenny Galladay get a little healthier. But of course, like I said, make sure to subscribe. We'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Giants episode.